Okay, today we have a guest with us on the podcast and on YouTube. So, hello. How do I pronounce your name,
Hi,
by the way? Urmi?
Urmi, yes.
Urmi, okay. Cool. Very nice to meet you, and thanks for being on here. So, you speak quite a few languages, and yeah, tell us about the languages you speak and how you learn them.
Yes, I always say I speak 4.5 languages, and I will tell you what's the point five. So I speak Bengali, Italian, English, French, and Spanish is the point five, which is a work in progress, and it's a language that I want to master properly. And how did I learn each one of them? So Bengali was my mother tongue. I learned it since I was born. And then I was born and raised in Italy, so I went to an Italian school. That's what I learned Italian. And I always say Italian is my adopted mother tongue because it's a language that I knew better than Bengali and I brought it at home and we would use it at home as well. I learned English and French at school. And then Spanish, I learned it in university, and Spanish was the language that I wanted to learn because English and French were like part of the school curriculum, so I had no choice but learn them. And Spanish was the language that I wanted to learn, and the fact that I knew Italian really helped with my Spanish classes. However, it's a language that is still a work in progress, and I'm trying to like really, really master. Like I want to become fluent.
Hmm. What inspired you to learn Spanish?
It's the way it sounds, it's like it sounds very I don't know. I listen to someone speaking Spanish and I feel like I can just listen to them non-stop. And I was like, me too, I want to sound the same way. And I think I'm very much fascinated by, the whole culture that there is behind Spanish and Spanish speaking countries. I would say it was the main reason. And yeah, I was just fascinated by the sound of it.
Hmm. Very cool. How similar do you feel Italian and Spanish sound to you?
You know what we say what we say about Spanish? We always say Spanish is Italian with an S at the end, and we just make fun of the language by basically putting an S to every single Italian word. But it is very similar in the sense that, in Spanish you read every single word you pronounce it, right? When you read it, you just pronounce it, and it's the same thing with Italian. And the grammar is also very similar. A lot of words are very similar. So yeah, they're just so similar, like really, really
Hmm.
similar. Similar. The only thing is that with Spanish you do have, it's the intonation, like where the accent falls, and you have to be careful with that. And sometimes for me it's not obvious. It's not obvious where
Hmm.
the accent falls. So I would say that was like for me that was like a struggle with the accents, but it's a struggle in every single language that I
Yeah.
know.
How much Italian? Sorry, how much Spanish do you speak?
So there is a difference, I feel like, in what I can speak and then what
Mhm.
I can understand, because I feel like I understand better than speaking. And I am currently like working on my speaking. Like if you ask me this question, let's say 8 years ago, I would have told you, oh yeah, my speaking is it's pretty good. Like I was able to, give presentation in Spanish.
Hmm.
But I feel like because I have not practiced it for so many years, it declined a little bit. So sometimes maybe I know what the word is, but it's not in my mind. So I have like really difficulty in, let's say, formulating a sentence.
Hmm.
However, if I listen to that, I know that that's the word.
So you've been learning Spanish for 8 years?
No, I initially took my first class in 2015, 2016. So I took three classes, then I graduated in 2016, so I did not do anything with it.
Okay.
And I would say 2 years ago, I started to, pick up with Spanish, and I was like, okay, I don't want to forget it. Because when I was in Italy, I also used to know how to speak German, and then
Mhm.
I completely forgot the language because I didn't use it. But Spanish, it's a language that I really like. So I started to, let's say, listen to podcasts. I started to watch like YouTube content, like it's Spanish. I don't know if you're feeling familiar with the channel. And then I started to do now like actual conversation.
Who do you talk to?
I have a professor that a friend of mine recommended me.
Cool. So
Yeah,
basically, you do some conversation, you do
some grammar.
listening with podcasts, and then
Yeah,
grammar with the professor as well.
that's right. And I watched the content on Easy Spanish.
Easy Spanish, yeah.
Yeah.
If you go back about let me think here, it would have been 5 years, I think. Yeah, if you go back to the Easy English videos 5 years ago, you'll see me, yours truly. So yeah, for
Oh,
maybe about a year, and then if there's like two, I think 2 or 3 Easy Gujarati videos, and you'll see me in those too. Yeah.
oh, that's so nice. I feel like I'm talking to someone very famous.
No, 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 not at all, not at all. Yeah, I did think I did that for about a year-ish, maybe year and a half. I don't know, something like that. I can't
That's
remember
so much
exactly.
fun, though. That is so
Yeah,
much fun.
it was super fun, and like those guys work hard. Honestly, one of my favorite. So this here's like a behind the scenes, kind of behind the scenes story. So they'd organized a conference and training in Germany. So we'd all gone to Germany for a training and then also kind of a conference as well. So they were doing training on camera angles and how to ask good questions and topics and the thumbnails and audio quality, like all sorts of like the marketing side, like all sorts of different things. And those guys take it real seriously. Like those are hardworking. All those guys are very hardworking people. It was actually quite inspiring to be around them.
Yeah, they're
Hyper
very
inspiring.
professional. Very professional.
Absolutely, very professional. I remember one time I came down. We were in the hotel, and I came down the elevator for, I think it was a meal time, maybe it was a training. I was early. Whatever we had, I was early, and maybe half an hour early. And literally, probably like a third of all the people at the conference were already there working. They're on their computers doing work. And I was like, wow, this is like my type of crowd. Like these guys are
Yeah.
wow. Like, I was so impressed because I like to work and I don't have a friend circle like that where there's like, I don't know that many people that are just like workers and these guys work. I was like, wow, this is so inspiring. Very, very inspiring people, but
Yeah. And honestly, they have great content.
they do.
They
They
have
do. Well, they
great
put so much
content.
work behind it, right? It's like they're really take it seriously. So that's why they have such amazing and they're so passionate about it. They're so passionate. But
Yes. Yes.
cool. So that's how you're learning Spanish. And how do you feel about how it's going so far?
I feel like it's getting better.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like at the beginning, I was a bit I can't think of the word right now in English. I have the word in Italian. Rusty, I think that's how you say it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was a little bit rusty, but I think it's coming back to me.
It's coming back to you.
Yeah.
Very,
Yeah.
very cool. So we just did a podcast on your YouTube channel. We were talking about this whole guaranteed fluency project that I'm working on, where I want to have a very structured program with classes that people can follow leads to fluency. Um, and I'm actually genuinely curious. So, because I want to know your perspective on this, because you said, oh, I really want to like master Spanish, right? And so, if let's fast forward like 5 years into the future, and we don't know each other, but you found our website and it's like, hey, there's a structured, whatever, 3-year program or something. And you can see all the steps and it leads to, let's say, a very advanced level in reading, writing, speaking, listening, all categories. Would something like that appeal to you?
Yes. And actually, I'm going to tell you something
Okay.
because so I like structured things when it comes to learning, and when it comes to languages, it's the same thing. Like I think I'm so used to learning, from how it is done in at school. Like, in school there is a structure and they teach you everything, and there is, a program that, you do everything. You basically learn everything of a language. It's not just conversation. You do, grammar, you do speaking, you do writing, reading, and things like that. And that's how I like to learn it. So far, what happened is I was doing it on my own, but I needed someone to tell me about my mistakes, and I needed someone to, help me to bring me to the right direction. That's why I have a teacher. I have a
Mm-hmm.
teacher who, makes everything accountable, and he gives me homework, and this is how I like to learn. And so that's why, like, I feel like a program like that would appeal me, because this is also what I look for when I'm trying to learn. Because let's say before I used to go to YMCA, but for instance, their their programs are so short. Like it's
They
like
are, yeah.
they're so short, and I'm like, that's not enough. That's not
Hmm.
enough. It's like when it comes to languages, I think it's never enough 3 months or 6 months. You need longer time if you want to master it properly. And I feel like
Hmm.
it's a continuation. And so, for instance, those programs, yes, I did them, but I did not like them as much.
What is, I'm actually really curious. What does, and this, there isn't really an answer to this, but we can try and discuss it. What does mastery look like to you? So if you said, I've mastered quote unquote Spanish. Like, what is that? What would that look like?
For me, if you
Yeah.
ask me right now, it'd be just to be able to speak it fluently like a real, speaker, and to be able to write it and read it. So basically everything.
But for example, like if we made that more technical, so you could say, well, okay, I can write an email. I'm happy with that. Great, I can write. I can read emails, or I can read websites online. I can scroll my social media. Or someone could say, no, I want to be able to write. Like I did a literature degree, so I wrote
Right,
30 page, or not 30 page, but let's say 5 to 25 page papers. I would have to read research studies. We'd have to read novels and do novel studies and do read poetry and go read old French and Spanish and like look at how it's different back. Like it was a completely
right,
different level. And then we had to do presentations on it. And then they don't grade us on this, but we also, for me, it was important to have to hang out in the bar with people, like in a casual,
right.
hyper casual environment. Like, how would you, like when you say you want to speak, you want to read, you want to write, like in what context?
It's be like a native, basically.
Got it. Be like a native.
That's yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
That's
Cool.
how I would define it.
Cool. Very, very cool. I recently I was driving the other day in my car and I was asked, and I realized that I think that I've actually tracked my fluency. I would have answered that same way if you'd asked me basically any point in my language learning journey. Like, what do you want to be like? I'd be like, oh, basically native. But I
Yeah,
found out that for me, this is a slight nuance. For me, it's when I don't feel anxious anymore, ever in that language.
that's right.
And what's interesting is that, so technically speaking, I was actually wondering because like technically let's look at French and Spanish, my strongest languages. They're very advanced. In French, I even have a certificate from a French university from many years ago, but still, it was a basically a C2 level essentially, like a very advanced
Uh-huh.
level. And so objectively I have it, but ultimately for me, what I realize is that it's about how I feel, how confident do I feel in any type of circumstance where I have to use that language. That's how I measure quote unquote my fluency for me.
Yeah. And and I agree with you. I think I would probably feel the same too. Like I feel like it's the moment that you don't feel worried about making mistakes, you don't feel anxious, you are confident enough to have a conversation, to ask questions, you're confident to speak that language in front of many people,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
And I think, sorry, I'll let you go.
No, 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 that's it.
Oh, okay. I think as well that so much of that, at least for me, has to do with the environments you find yourself in. I'll tell you a story about that. Like this would have been, I think, 3 years ago approximately. In Calgary, I went to this networking event for francophone business owners. Now, I'm not francophone, but when I speak French, people don't know that I'm not. It's very easy for me to pass as a francophone. It's very, very straightforward. But I was really nervous. I thought, wow, this is like I'm not used to talking about my business in French. I'm just not inexperienced, right? And they're all francophones, but I'm going and I'm not francophone. Like, is that going to be a problem? I was invited by someone, so I wasn't just like rushing it. I was invited, but still, I was nervous. And I remember thinking afterward, like, man, if I was constantly in like businessy environments in French, like I would feel like I don't know enough French because,
Right.
but I do in my current context, I feel like I know enough because for everything I'd ever want to do in French, I have no issues. But the second I was there, I was like, wow, if I had to do this in French regularly, I would feel like I've got gaps.
So it's it's more about how you perceive yourself, because I'm pretty sure people around you don't perceive you the same way that you see yourself. Maybe you feel like, okay, I cannot do, I don't think I can do this if I was in this kind of environment, but maybe in other people's eyes, you came across perfectly fine. You know what I mean? It's sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's our own self-doubt that we have, which
Yeah,
is not the reflection of reality.
that's a very good point you make. That's a
Yeah,
very, very good point you make.
yeah. So,
There's like a lot of, even when you were talking about your Spanish, it was quite interesting. You described it as you said something like, yeah, I feel like the words don't, I can't always remember the words. I feel kind of like the talking's not coming. But I would wonder if some other Spanish person talked to you, they'd be like, "No, your Spanish is great. What are you talking about? Like, sounds wonderful." But again, it goes back to that self perception of like, yeah, but it's not. No, there's a lot. I know there's a lot of gaps. Or I feel maybe that I feel there's a lot of gaps. Maybe.
yes, yes. But I also think as human beings, especially if we're learning a language, we always seek for that perfection. Like I know that when I'm speaking a language that it's not mine and I'm speaking that language, I do want to sound perfect. I know. I know that for a fact. Like I don't want to
Mhm.
have an accent, for instance. I want to sound like a native, but I'm also aware that some things we cannot achieve them like the accent. Like it also depends on when you learn a language. I know that I have an accent in every single language that I'm speaking. Even in English, I have an accent, and sometimes I wish I did not have an accent, but then I'm like, no, it just makes you who you are and it just shows that you speak multiple languages. So I try to see the good thing about it. But I know
Mm.
that a lot of people don't like to have an accent.
See, that's where that's where I get into a weird gear about accent, like in my other languages. There's like a little other there's a side of my personality where it comes to like when it comes to pronunciation, I get like I go into a mode where in the words that came to mind now is failure is not an option, and
I get it.
I will do every I will like I will it's either perfect pronunciation or die. That's literally the like literally, and then I always have perfect pronunciation. I'll always end up in every in French, Spanish, Mandarin. Now it doesn't happen instantly. It's as I get more fluent in language, my pronunciation goes with it. So as an example, in Mandarin, um, very recently actually, I was talking to my Mandarin teacher, and we are just talking about stuff, and I asked her, I was like, I know I have excellent pronunciation. I know that any sound, if you told me to pronounce it, I know it sounds good. I know I string things very naturally. But I was like, but aside from if I don't know words or something like that, I asked her, like, would you know if you close your eyes that I'm not a native speaker? Like, I was very curious, actually. I ask this question regularly to people when I'm learning languages, like, and I'll get lots of people to get feedback from lots of people to see like where are the common feedbacks. And she goes, yeah, I would think that you're an extremely advanced Mandarin speaker. Like I
Oh,
would, and I was like, okay, I was like, interesting. Is it the pronunciation? She's like, no, it's not your pronunciation. It's because it's perfect, but there's just something that's not quite right. And what's really cool about this guaranteed fluency is now we're able to put language to what those things are. So in my case, it's speech rate and vocabulary usage. My speech rate is slightly off from what native speakers have, and then the
yeah.
vocabulary is excellent, but I don't use the exact native words that they would use. I just don't know them yet, and it's so cool to be able to define what those gaps are now. Whereas before, it's kind of like, just keep practicing. I was like, no, no, no. Your speech rate
Mm-hmm.
is 112 words per minute, and a native
Wow.
speech rate starts at 150. So the issue of why you don't sound native is because you actually speak slightly slower than a slow native speaker. So like that's why you're hyper advanced and like it sounds amazing, but we would know you're not native. And here's the issue. I'm working on that for pronunciation. We don't have it quite yet. I have a theory on how to approach that. The problem I have with it is training tutors or using software. I'm not really sure actually to hear phonemic differences,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really tough. It's a really tough skill actually to do
I,
that.
I was going to say that. I think pronunciation is a hard thing to master.
I've wondered about that. I wonder if it's hard to master or if people don't make it a priority.
I don't know. I feel like it's hard to master. It depends also when you learn it. I feel like if you are much
Yes.
younger, it's easier, than when you get older. But pronunciation is, I think it's hard to master it, honestly. It also depends on the language that you're learning. Some languages are easier, some others are much harder. Like I feel like Italian is much easier when it comes to
And I have a
pronunciation.
technical question for you. When you say it's hard, what does that mean for you? What does hard mean?
It's the accent.
And does that mean that is it hard because it requires a lot of mental effort? Is it hard because you have to focus? Is it hard because you can't do it consistently? Is it hard because you can't hear it? Is it hard because, or all of it?
All of the above.
And what's easy for you in languages? Like, what would maybe be easier? Like, oh, this is easier. What's easier for you?
What's easier?
Easier than pronunciation, for example.
I think grammar is easy because it's just
Hmm.
memorization.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just
that makes a ton of
memorization.
sense. That makes a ton of sense. What a interesting. So there's another I'm actually curious what you think about this. One of the things I've been saying a lot lately is that I think the reason people struggle to learn language, not struggle, but let's just say they fail to learn to the level that they would like to, I think it's that for the most part, people approach it with the wrong mentality. They approach learning it like as an intellectual skill, like history class, and they don't learn it like a physical skill, like learning a dance. And I think if you approach learning languages with the mentality of I'm going to go to a dance class and I'm learning to dance, I think it changes everything. I think it changes everything. It makes you take all the right actions. But if you treat it as an intellectual skill, at least for the listening, sorry, for the conversation and listening, it's not so much for reading. Maybe it's different for reading and writing, but at least for the conversation and listening side of things, I think it's a way better idea to think of it like I'm gonna go learn how to dance or swim or do jujitsu or do boxing or do learn how to some kind of a complex physical skill. Can't be something relatively simple. It has to be a complex physical skill. Because I do think that's a much better analogy. I've been wondering. What do you think about
I don't know if it's a better analogy
that?
because I think learning a language is a skill
Mm-hmm.
anyway, like whether you say it's an intellectual skill or not an intellectual skill, because it still requires you to put effort, dedication.
Mm-hmm.
You still have to work really hard. I think it's about consistency. I think the problem is that sometimes people don't
It's true.
make it a priority as well because it's just like, yeah, I'm doing this for fun, it's not important. And like I think it's really just like any skill, like it's the same as cooking, the same as swimming, the same as anything else. I think it's I don't think it's about being intellectual or not. I think it still requires you to make an effort in every sense.
This is true. I think so. Here's what I was thinking. You tell me what you think about this. Because this I've been thinking a lot about this lately. I don't know. I just don't know what I think. I don't know what to think about it. So I probably talked to about I don't know. I probably talked to let's just say I talked to probably 100 plus language learners a month. Probably. Probably more. Probably more than that. Anyway, let's say it's at least 1,000 people a year, but probably more language learners. And I notice that a lot of people will treat language learning as if it's a school subject. So what they will do is they will have worksheets, they will watch videos, they will take notes, they will write on papers, they will approach it as if it's a school subject. And what I tend, not always, but what I tend, something feet, I don't, it's really actually hard to find my words on this one, but because I don't know what I think about this, but um, that's one form of effort, and that's a mental effort. And something is definitely happening, and learning is happening. There's another form of effort where here's where it's coming from. So we've been doing collecting data on how much people progress in what periods of time, and we're trying to map that to what types of teaching strategies we use. We're trying to create that map. And I've really been struggling to figure out. I have a hypothesis now, but for over 18 months, maybe a little less actually, what I've been struggling to figure out is why is it that people are taking the classes right now that we're offering and they're putting in less effort in the context of worksheets, study where your brain feels like it's working, but they're putting effort in a different way that I'm likening it to something that's embodied a physical skill. It's a different type of effort. Like it actually feels different in your brain. I wish I had a brain scan so I can show it. A lot of the Calgary language tutors have said the same thing when they take classes with. They'll take classes for another language they don't speak with the types of approaches we're using to see how it feels for them. And they're like, it just feels different. And then what seems to happen is that we can actually measure the progress, and it sometimes seems superhumanly fast. It actually, we don't believe the data. We don't believe it sometimes. About 33% of students progress so fast, it looks superhumanly fast. It doesn't make sense. There's one in front of me right now. I'll actually read it to you. I was looking at it 2 seconds ago. It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And this is really common though. So we used to think it was false positives. We thought it's like, oh, we must have done something wrong.
Yeah.
But it keeps happening. Not all the time, but like often enough where you're like, hang on. So here's a guy, he's taken 8 hours of class, learning Spanish, intermediate kind of level. Actually, yeah. And his speech rate has increased by 122% in 8 classes. So he used to talk at 36 words a minute. That's pretty slow overall.
Yeah.
Now he speaks at 80 words a minute, which in 80 words we've been finding is a point where native speakers will not think you're speaking slowly anymore. They'll think you're speaking at a normal pace. It is slower than they talk, but it's a pace where
Uh-huh.
they feel it's a comfortable. That's 8
Uh-huh.
classes. That doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it makes sense to me, but it's so in short, I know I'm kind of rambling, but in short, what it 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 looks it looks to me that there's different ways you can allocate mental effort, and the way that you allocate your mental effort changes the results that you would see.
But I also think you cannot generalize. Like even for this student, I feel like it depends on how fast someone can learn. It depends on their background knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
If they know a language that is similar to Spanish, like I feel like there are many factors behind
But we're
those
tracking them.
numbers.
We're tracking them, and so far it's
Yeah.
pretty constant, which is really so. What's really cool is that we're not there yet, but we're able to get standard. We're starting to standardize what's the average rate of progress,
Uh-huh.
and it's so like it's just genuinely like. So here's something really interesting. If you look at a university, right, thousands of people might go into one university setting, thousands, and yet at year one in the program, you can predict what the graduation rates will be. You'll know how many people on the dean's list. You'll know how many people fail. It doesn't matter that they're all different people. It doesn't matter that because you can Google it. You can literally see it online, and you know what the odds are because they've just seen enough data. We know I used to work at a window cleaning franchise, and all the franchisees that
Yes.
they hired were inexperienced. One of the things that they knew exactly what the training procedure had to be done. They don't care what your personality is, not really. If they don't really care, like we do this, and we know that here's some people they're not gonna be successful. We know that, and it's a minimal percentage, but it does happen. We don't know how to fix it, but we know that the bulk of people see this kind of result. We know that the top performers do this. We know that, and it's like I think when you get enough data,
That's
you can
it.
actually you can consolidate it to go, okay, well look, we can't get 100% because we just
That's
don't
it.
know, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's about data, it's about statistics. I feel like you really have to collect a lot of data to make a proper standard conclusion about the research. Like
Yeah,
I feel like right now, like I don't know how far you guys are with the data, but yeah,
not far enough.
you need to collect sufficient data.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So we have a little bit of time left. I was gonna ask you about your Spanish. I was gonna ask you, yes, a rather technical question here too, um, as well about your Spanish learning. And actually, well, yeah, let's go Spanish. So one of the things I'm fascinated by for language learning is not just the resources people use, but how they use those resources. The analogy I'd make is I go to the gym now. It's been about a little over a year of my life of going to the gym and everything. It's fascinating that it's not just, okay, I did this exercise. It's where was your mindset at? What was your form? Like when you did the rep, how intense was your rep? Like there's so many, you can just say, I went to the gym, did 10 reps, and person two said, I went to the gym, did 10 reps of this exercise, but they get completely different results because of how the technicalities of it. So how do you use, for example, Easy Spanish? Like, what do you do with it? Do you like drive and listen? Do you just watch it? Do you cover
Oh,
subtitles? Do you like write, or what do you do?
no, basically, I actually take notes,
Mhm.
like you said before. So I watch them and I'm taking notes. I do have subtitles, but it's they're Spanish. The subtitles are in Spanish because I want to see how the things are written, and then I take notes on the different expressions. That's how I like to do with Easy Spanish. I also listen to this podcast. I forgot the name, but that one I just do it for the sake of listening. So I'm just
Hmm.
really pay attention. Like I listen to it as I'm going to work, and I pay attention to the words that are using. So that one I do it differently. I also have a book called Learn Spanish with Stories or something like that,
Mm,
which
yeah,
are
yeah.
like short stories of like one page. And those ones, for instance, when I read them, I pay attention to the grammar structure. Like I'm like I try to recognize the grammar, like the verb tense, and that's I'm like, oh yeah, I know this one, you know. So that's how
Mm,
I like to analyze them. And that's how I like to learn the language, and I analyze different things depending on what I'm doing.
right. So you'll do the activity, you'll pay attention to something different depending on what resource you're using.
That's right. Yes.
Very cool. What about when you're talking? What do you pay attention to? Like when you're professor and you're chit-chatting or whatever.
And and that's a tough one because in that moment, I'm just thinking why the words are not coming out of my mouth, you know? Because he's talking, I'm like, yeah, 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 I understand everything. And then the moment I have to speak, I feel like I'm frozen. That's how I feel. I'm like, but I knew this, you know, like I know what's happening. And then, you know, the words are coming in different languages. Sometimes just say it in Italian, hoping that I, you know, guessed it right. And usually I do guess it right because it sounds so similar to Italian.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot of similarities. Interesting. Why do you think that freeze response happens? Because I definitely can relate to that too. Like I even at that French networking event where I'm hyper fluent. They don't even know I'm not French. They don't know. Like I'm hyper fluent in French, like super fluent. And yet I'm there and like I remember this one time I was talking to this lady and she asked me something. I think she asked me what I did for work, something really basic. And
Yeah.
I just looked at her and I was like, I know what I do for work. And I was like, oh, she's like, you know your job? I was like, oh yeah, I know. And I was like, I can't, like I was froze, like literally I was like, oh, I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, after 27 years of French, where like you did your education in French, you lived in France, you like, and this person asked you, what do you do for work? And you're like, hi,
Frozen.
hello.
I, I mean, I don't know why it happens, but I can tell you for me, if I think about Spanish, it's because I probably did not practice it enough. That's
Okay.
what I think for my case.
Hmm.
I feel like if
Yeah.
I've spoken more often,
Mm-hmm.
then I would not feel like I'm frozen.
Mm.
Like I
Right.
feel like once you say the same words like over and over again, it's just gonna come
Right.
to you naturally. Like, you know, you think you're miedo, you know, like it's just gonna come
Yeah.
out naturally.
Yeah. Yeah. There's I'll share this with you. We've been trying to hypothesize why people don't progress. And we've narrowed it down to four. We think there's only four roadblocks so far. And
Yeah.
one of the things he's mentioned is on those four. So we think there's only four things that hold people back. We think it's confidence, practice, vocabulary, or what's the fourth one? Confidence, practice, vocabulary. Oh, or grammar. Right?
Hmm.
There's like four, I think grammar, yeah, or grammar. And then for some people, potentially pronunciation, depending on the language. But that one, those four that I mentioned first. Those are the big ones, and sometimes pronunciation. And you're right that the practice one is like you're probably right that if you're just talking a bit more often in Spanish, and then you were like you just come easier, like just a little bit of more practice
Yeah.
will just make a
Yeah.
big difference.
And I think practice and vocabulary go together.
Yeah, yeah. I think all four of those in many ways go together. In many ways they do. Practice and grammar and like if you're doing a lot of reading, for example, your vocabulary goes up, your vocabulary goes up, but your grammar might also increase,
That's
right?
right.
Like I think a lot of those are tied together.
That's right, exactly. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we can start to wrap things up. Any final thoughts you want to share?
Now, this was very analytical as an episode. A lot of thinking, I guess. Definitely
Cool.
did a lot of thinking.
Hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
Any where can people find you?
I have a YouTube channel called Urmi Hossain. People can connect with me there. I also have my LinkedIn profile called Urmi Hossain if people want to connect with me over there as well. And then
Hmm.
they can also find out more of the work that I do with Women in Leadership Canada. I am part of the Victoria chapter where I run the social media account and we do Instagram lives. We promote the work that we do where we try to basically empower the women in the community. So they can also look up Women in Leadership Canada to find out more about the work related to women's empowerment.
Cool. All right. Well, stop the recording here. Don't leave the Zoom room. But one quick thing before I finish. But everyone, thanks for listening/watching, and see you in the next one.